a spring and began to race back to the oak. But then he too fell, tripping over a vine, and David shot past him and touched the oak one jump ahead of him, shouting "First." They sat down on the moss, panting. The fawn said, "You can really run. I'm sorry you fell." "Well, you fell too, so that makes us even," said David. They looked at each other, and for some reason burst out laughing. They rolled around on the moss and laughed until tears came, while the phoenix fidgeted in reproachful silence. When they had calmed down a little, the fawn said, "Can you dance?" "No," said David. "I wish I could, though." "The educational value of dancing is practically nil," the phoenix began severely. "I advise—" "Sure you can dance," said the fawn. "Listen." He brought the pipes to his lips and began to play. And much to his surprise and delight, David found himself dancing as though he had never done anything else in his life. The wonderful thing was that he did not have to think about what he was doing. The music was doing it all for him. He saw that even the phoenix was shuffling round in time to the piping, and looking very embarrassed about it, too. "There," said the fawn, when they had finished, "you can dance, and very well. Even old Phoenix can dance." Suddenly he jumped up and cried, "Let's go! Come on!" and started to run. David followed, not knowing where they were going, and not caring. The phoenix came after them, half running and half flying to keep up. They raced across the glade, through a stand of trees, and out into the meadow beyond. There they came to a bank of daisies, and threw themselves into the middle of it and began to pelt each other with blossoms. The phoenix, finally caught up in the spirit of it, collected a huge bunch while they were wrestling, flew suddenly over them, and drowned them beneath a deluge of flowers. Nearby was the stream. They splashed in the shallows, skipped pebbles over the surface, and dug a harbor with 2 dikes in the sandy part of the shore. The fawn showed David how to build little boats of reeds, and the phoenix made them sail by blowing up a wind with its wings. They had a tree-climbing contest, which David won because his feet were better than hooves for standing on branches. But the fawn won the jumping contest because of the tremendous spring in his legs. They came out even in the handstand, somersault, and skin-the-cat contest. And the phoenix won when they played skip-rope with a piece of vine, because it could hover in the air with its wings while the vine swished over and under. They had fun with the sheep and goats, too. The fawn made the animals dance and caper to a tune from his pipes, and showed David how to ride on the rams. You crept up very quietly from behind, jumped suddenly on their backs, got a quick grip around their necks, and away in a rush. It was almost as good as flying, except that you got jolted off sooner or later. Then, watch out! It took some quick dodging to escape the horns of the angry rams. They left the goats alone because of their sharper horns and the wicked look in their eyes. "I know where some pictures are," said the fawn. "Come on." And he led them to a kind of glade ringed with shattered columns. The ground there was covered with moss and drifts of leaves. They each got a stick to clear away the debris, and uncovered a beautiful mosaic pavement. It was made of bits of colored stone and tile, which were arranged to make pictures. There were scenes of youths treading out wine, minstrels with lyres, gods with curly hair, and a beast which was half man and half horse. There were maidens dancing to flute and drums, hunters battling with boars and lions, warriors clashing with sword and shield and spear. There were a series of pictures telling stories of wonders and adventures in far distant lands, voyages, wars, conquests. The fawn proudly pointed out a picture of other fawns dancing with nymphs. The phoenix gazed very thoughtfully at some scenes of a bird building and sitting in a nest of flames, but the last picture of this story had been broken up by roots, so they could not see how it ended. When they came to the end of the valley, where the rainbow arched over the pool, David told them of the pot of gold which is supposed to be at the foot of rainbows. They looked for it, but without success, because the rainbow disappeared whenever they got too close to it. So David and the fawn contented themselves with jumping into the pool and ducking each other and making bubbly noises, while the phoenix, who could not swim, stood on the shore and beamed at them. They picked ferns from under the waterfall and made wreaths and garlands, which they threw at the phoenix's head like quoits. The fawn showed them a certain place to shout from if you wanted to hear an echo. The phoenix shouted, "A stitch in time saves nine," and the echo dolorously answered, "A switch is fine for crime." Wet and tired from splashing in the pool, they stretched out in the sun to dry. A grapevine grew near them, and they gorged themselves on the fruit, smearing their faces and hands with purple. And David closed his eyes and thought, "Now I'm having a dream, and so is the phoenix. We're all dreaming the same thing and living in the dream, and I wish, oh, I wish none of us will ever wake up." But he had just opened his eyes again when the fawn leaped to his feet and cried, "Listen!" and flicked his pointed ears forward like a cat. David stood up and said in a puzzled voice, "I don't hear anything." He noticed that the phoenix had also got up and was listening uncomfortably to whatever it was. "Listen, oh listen!" cried the fawn. There was a joyous light in his eyes as he leaned forward with his lips slightly parted, straining toward the mysterious silence. Suddenly he shouted, "I'm coming! I'm coming!" and dashed off into the wood. "Good heavens!" muttered the phoenix. "I had forgotten about this. Let us go home, my boy." A strange, uncontrollable trembling had seized David's legs. He still could hear nothing, but some feeling, some hint of an unknown, tremendous event, hung quivering in the air about them and sent little electric thrills racing up and down his whole body. "Oh, Phoenix, what is it? What is it?" he whispered. "I think we had best be going, my boy," said the phoenix anxiously. "Come along." "Phoenix?" But he heard it now. It came whispering toward them, the sound of pipes caroling, pipes such as the fawn had played, but greater, as an organ is greater than a flute. The wild, sweet sound rose and fell, swelled like a full choir, diminished into one soprano voice that pierced David through and through, caressing and tugging, calling, "Come, come, run, run." "Phoenix!" David cried. "Oh, Phoenix! Listen, listen!" "Run, run!" the pipes whispered. "Let us go home, my boy," said the phoenix warningly. "Come, come!" cried the pipes. They could be resisted no longer. In a transport of joy, David shouted, "I'm coming!" and raced away toward the sound. There was nothing in his mind now, nothing in the whole world, but a desire to be near those pipes. He must run like the winds, leap and shout, roll in the grass, throw himself down flowered slopes, follow that magic music wherever it should lead. He fled blindly through the wood, heedless of the branches which whipped his face and the thorns which tore at his legs. The pipes were calling more loudly now. "Run, run! Faster, faster!" Then the phoenix plunged to earth in front of him, threw out both wings, and shouted, "Stop!" "Let me go, Phoenix!" David cried. "Let me by! I want to run! I must run!" He made a desperate effort to push past the outstretched wings, but the phoenix flung him to the ground, picked him up before he could kick once, and threw him on its back. Then they were flying at full speed, dodging through gaps in the branches and between close-set trunks, with leaves and twigs slashing them from every side. They burst out of the wood and sped over a meadow. David saw below them a huge fawn-like figure pacing majestically across the sward. A flaming wreath encircled its brow. Garlands of flowers hung from its arms and shoulders, and those enchanted pipes were lifted to its lips. Around the cloven hooves, and trailing out behind, danced a multitude of creatures. Lambs and kids gambolling, goats and rams tossing their horns, foxes, furry waves of squirrels, rabbits kicking up their heels, fawns and nymphs rollicking, frogs and crickets and serpents. Above them flew birds and butterflies and beetles and bats in swirling clouds. Full-voiced, the glorious pipes sang, "Come, come, run, run, follow, leap and dance, adore and obey. Run, oh run, heed me before all passes. Follow before it is too late, too late, too late." And David, in a delirium of desire, shouted, "I'm coming!" and jumped from the phoenix's back. For an instant, as he fell through the air, he thought he would succeed in joining the dancing throng, but the phoenix, plunging after him falcon-wise, with folded wings, seized his collar in its talons and snatched him up from the very